Hey guys, it's Vince and Drew with Power 5 Fanatics. Hey, we just finished up the regular season going into the title games for each conference this weekend, which will be week 15.
Yeah.
And we got our new Power 5 Fanatics top 10, which we're about to reveal. A lot of it, I'll be honest, I haven't even looked at the college football playoff one yet. I kind of know how it probably ended up. I'm sure the big move was Alabama dropped way out, and Georgia moved up. But
Baylor
anyway,
moved up. Oklahoma's continuing to move up.
yeah, but I hadn't even looked at it because we consider ours the only one that matters anyway. So we'll reveal ours now. Number one, this hasn't changed in about what, Drew? 2.5 months.
Probably since
Into September, maybe.
yeah.
It's been a
week
while.
4, week 5. I think we've had Ohio State number 1.
Yeah,
I can't remember what they did at that time, but
we're one of the the pioneers on the Ohio State number 1 bandwagon. So, anyways, we haven't changed it. Of course, they beat Michigan 56-27. A lot of people thought that was going to be a close game, Drew, and it wasn't. So,
yeah, it never really was. I mean, I think for a while there, Michigan was pretty amped up being at home, but you could just kind of tell who the better team was.
who has
that
the better
day.
players?
Yeah, and there was a little bit of a scare there because it looked like maybe Justin Fields might have been out. He'd gone out because he got hit kind of weird on the knee, where, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're probably worried about the rest of the season at that point. But then he comes back out a few plays later, and the first play out the gate, he throws a touchdown.
Yeah.
So it kind of signified.
Yeah,
and I think even on that play, he was kind of on the move. So it kind of signified that he was okay.
Everybody took a deep breath there.
Yeah.
I can't remember the show I was watching this week. I think it was our listening to this week. I think it was the Will Kane show, and somebody brought up the idea of, Michigan, they get a lot of the great recruits, and they were comparing Michigan to Texas, how they still get a lot of 5 stars, and they get their share of 4 stars.
Yeah.
And that they're just not developing the talent
Right.
like some of these other, like Alabama is and Ohio State and Clemson, at least at this point
Yeah.
in time. And so, they're recruiting, but they're not developing, and that's something they're going to have to change if they're going to get up to that upper echelon.
Yeah, there's a big difference between really good recruiting teams and then really good elite
Then the elite ones,
teams.
they develop them.
Yeah.
Kind of like Chase Young. No one had ever heard who the guy was unless you're a Buckeyes fanatical.
Yeah.
And and look at him. So they brought him up in the system, and then he was able to thrive. When it was finally his turn.
Yeah.
2, this hasn't changed in a long time, at least on the Power 5 Fanatics. It's LSU.
And there's some good debate to be had here on if LSU should be number 1. I mean, I think these top 3 teams here, I'm sure you probably know who they are. There's some good debate that
They're pretty
all
interchangeable.
3 of these teams are starting to peak at the right time, and it's going to be, interesting to see how this playoff, plays out here.
Of course, they beat A&M.
50-7.
Yeah, 50-7. So that was pretty impressive.
I think it was at one point in the game after the first quarter, LSU had more points than A&M had total yards after the first quarter.
That was impressive because A&M's defense has really been solid, the wrecking crew, and they got wrecked in that game.
And really, their offense has been a lot better.
Yeah.
A&M's offense.
Well, I know
has
it
been
had
better.
improved the last month of the season.
But in this game, they couldn't do anything right. The receivers were dropping passes, and LSU's thing this whole season was that their defense hadn't been as good as some of these other elite teams. Well, in this game, it was absolutely elite. They didn't hardly allow anything, and the pass rush was a lot better than it had been.
Yeah,
So.
these top 3 teams, which the third one, of course, is Clemson, they've really locked up.
Yeah.
They've
Outside of losing in their
They
conference game.
basically what they've done the last month of the season, all 3 of these teams is, convinced everybody, hey, they're the best. And none of them have really wavered. Of course, Clemson beat South Carolina 38-3.
Right.
Ohio State really hasn't wavered at all, and LSU not much. They just haven't looked as dominant as Ohio State, I would say. And just as far as the point differential that their points they're putting on people, but Clemson, you got to give them credit, man. People were questioning them, and I was too. By fourth or fifth week of the season, and yes, their schedule hasn't been near as tough as the top two. But when you're beating teams 38-3, and the team you just beat the one that's ranked below you, Georgia,
at their house too.
Yeah, that's pretty solid there. I mean, it's hard to argue with that. Of course, Georgia moved up by default. Of course, they beat Georgia Tech by a significant score of 52-7.
Yeah, 52-7.
But more of the reason they moved up is because Alabama, of course, lost. And the college football ranking did have Alabama, which was at 4. They moved them all the way to 12. We didn't move them that low. We'll reveal that here in a minute. But I thought that was really far to drop Alabama. 5, we got Utah. And really, now we're to the point where, okay, this is the last team that, in my opinion, 4 of these are going to be in there is what I would think. Just because it's hard to imagine Ohio State, Clemson, or LSU. If any of them, LSU and, of course, and Georgia are going to cancel each other out.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see Ohio State or Clemson losing. And when that happens, if Utah beats Oregon, I believe they're going to be in the top. They're going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess it depends on that LSU-Georgia game because there's no guarantee.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that LSU would drop out if they did lose to Georgia.
You're exactly right, Drew. I didn't even think of that. I guess because I'm so used to LSU not losing.
Yeah.
But if they did lose, I don't think they would drop out.
Yeah, because Georgia's shown that they're
it's really strange
really
this year
team.
because you got Ohio State and LSU. I mean, I think they're in. They probably are in. I mean, LSU'd have to get hammered by Georgia, I think, for them to drop out.
Well, considering that, Utah's already a one-loss team, and if, let's just say Ohio State, LSU, or Clemson lost, then they would become a one-loss team, but it wouldn't have been until the conference game. So, I mean, Clemson really, I don't think
Clemson can't lose. They cannot lose.
Because they're such a big
Their
favorite
strength of schedule is also
not
near
there.
as good.
And plus, they're not positioned.
Ohio State and LSU, I think, may be in there anyways. And it'd have to be something weird like Georgia just laying it on them.
Yeah.
2 or 3 touchdown win or something.
I think it also depends on how Utah performs against Oregon. I mean, Oregon's a good team, but at this point in the season, Utah's supposed to beat them just because they're ranked higher
and they're better.
And they're better. Their defense is really starting to peak as well. Morgan Scalley's really got them playing at a high level at Utah. So I think it all kind of depends on, how these games kind of play out. But, yeah, Utah's got a good shot at it. And I think a Big 12 team might, too, depending on some other things.
Speaking of the Big 12, now you're getting the teams that are going to have some help.
Yeah.
In one way or another. Either Utah losing, obviously the ones that we're getting to now, 7 and below or 6 and below, they want the favorites to win. They want LSU to win. They want Ohio State because it's going to give them an opportunity to slip in there, I think, over these other teams, I guess. I mean, that's the way I would look at it. They would probably want them, obviously, they'd want Georgia to lose to LSU. If Georgia does lose to LSU, Oklahoma, I would say, is almost maybe not quite as good of a chance, but I would say almost as good of a chance as Utah is, getting to that 4th spot, depending on how bad Oklahoma beats Baylor.
Yeah,
if that happens.
If that happens, yeah. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Oklahoma should be in above Utah even. I've seen that argument being made just because.
Based on the strength of schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at the, hindsight at the schedules and, both teams lost to an 8-4 team. Utah lost to USC, who's turned out to be a pretty dang good team, and then Oklahoma lost to Kansas State, who turned out to be a pretty dang good team. And then you look at the wins. At this point, Oklahoma has already beaten Baylor, who is number 7. In our poll, they're right after Oklahoma, and then I think they're probably in the top 7 in the playoff.
I would say
as well.
the Big 12, at least in our rankings, has consistently all year been better than the Pac-12.
Yeah, and by the way,
As far as just top to bottom,
Yeah.
strength of the teams.
and that gives Oklahoma another data point that they're have another top 25, and I think Iowa State was a top 25 team. So, anyways, there's an argument to be had that Oklahoma should be considered
Definitely.
where maybe they don't even need any help if they just take care of business on
Yeah,
Saturday.
it's going to be interesting. I think Utah deserves it if they win, just because I think they're a better team than Oklahoma. I'm just going off of what I think.
Yeah.
Even if maybe their strength of schedule hadn't been quite as good, but they've been consistently good all year long. They had their slip up against USC, but the other thing is USC ended up 8-4, and they're no slouch either.
No.
In fact, I think they're better than Kansas State,
Yeah.
who beat Oklahoma at this point in the season. So it'll be interesting to see what the playoff committee thinks. At number 8, we got
Or 7.
I'm sorry, number 7, we got Baylor.
Kind of already talked about them a little bit.
Yeah, and this is about where the end of the road is. I mean, as far as who's getting in, it's going to be one of those 7 teams, and Baylor has the worst chance of getting in. I would say you got to give them credit though, and I was wrong about Baylor. They proved me wrong here in the last month, I would say.
Yeah.
Even their loss against Oklahoma, they looked really good at times. They looked great against Texas. Excellent against Kansas. I know it's Kansas, but they beat them 61-6.
I mean, what else do you?
Yeah,
do you
it
need?
was at Kansas too. So,
Yeah.
anyways, but Baylor's going to have some style points. I think they're going to have to beat Oklahoma like pretty good. I mean, where you're like, wow, these guys, deserve to be in there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're still going to have the other pieces fall in place as far as they need Georgia to lose. To get into that 4th spot. I think they're really going to have some style points.
Yeah, and
And they need Utah to lose,
they
obviously,
need
also.
Utah to lose. The biggest thing for Baylor was their non-conference schedule was just not good enough. It's not going to cut it. I mean, they played Rice and then Stephen F. Austin or something like that. I mean, just didn't really have any marquee games.
I think it was that, and also their first 5 or 6 games in the conference. I mean, they were winning by field goals and stuff. I mean, they barely beat Tech on a controversial no call that didn't go against Baylor, which should have.
West Virginia.
They beat Iowa State
TCU.
at the last second kick.
Iowa State.
They barely beat TCU.
Yeah, TCU.
So, they didn't look that good. I mean, these are middling teams. We're talking, top 40 teams, maybe. Some of them may be closer to top 50 teams, and they're barely beating them. And a lot of those wins were at their house, too. So, they're fighting that stigma, too. See, that was a stigma that, I had against them, was just that I didn't think they were that good, but now they've proven me wrong. They're looking really solid.
They've kind of had to come back from behind, too, because, I mean, even in like week 9, 10, I mean, they were ranked like
15.
even undefeated. They were like 15.
Yeah,
So,
you're right. They had a hard road to
But-
compared to like Georgia or Alabama or a
who
team
started
like that.
there? Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, I mean, Baylor. What was I going to say about
Man,
it?
it really kills them, Baylor, and I know they're fans too, that they lost to Oklahoma the first time, because they'd be in front of Oklahoma at this point going into that final game with a better shot, and they were just up, so what was it, 28-3 at half?
Yeah, I mean, they were really.
So that's,
putting on.
of course, almost every team except for the top 3 have a story like that. Well, I wish that would have happened, or I wish that wouldn't have happened.
It's a long season. And,
Even Clemson almost had that. They almost lost to North Carolina. So, it's a long season.
But Baylor's, I mean, I think they're starting to peak right now. I mean, I think that
Oh,
coaching
yes.
staff, Matt Rule.
I'd say out of all the teams, they're peaking the best. I mean, compared to where they were to where they are now,
I mean,
they're looking night and day better.
Matt Rule, he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, he brought this team from being 1-11,
He does, because it's full of a
dumpster
bunch
fire,
of 2- and 3-star players.
to now. I mean, like I was saying, I mean, they had to kind of scratch their way to where they're at right now, and here they are now.
Without
they
the
look
talent
like,
level of some of these other teams.
they
have.
look like a team that deserves to be talked about at this late in the season. So, a lot of credit to them. They've had a great season.
These last 3, don't have a shot. of getting in. But we're going to finish out our top 10. Really, we probably should have just stopped at the top 7 because that's all that matters. But we're going to finish it out. Wisconsin, of course, beating Minnesota and ending their dream of a Big Ten championship and a possible national title. 9, we got Penn State. Of course, they beat Rutgers 27-6. All in all, excellent season. I'm sure they're hoping they're going to hold on to their coach. That's kind of up in there maybe a little bit. Teams like who's that? Maybe talking to him. USC, I know is one.
I'm actually hearing now though that USC might retain Clay Helton.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. Which
that surprised me.
kind
I
of
mean,
the news
I
this
think
morning.
he's been pretty good, but that surprised me though. And then 10, we got Alabama. So we don't have them as low as the playoff committee. I don't see how you can drop a team from number 4 to 12 like they did over 1. That seems like a big overreaction. But again, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you think Alabama fans care if they're 10 or 12?
We watched the Iron Bowl, guys.
Yeah.
We know that Auburn beat Alabama, and so there's an argument to be had that maybe Auburn should be ranked ahead of Alabama.
I just think if they play 10 times, they win 7.
But
that's what
Auburn,
I think.
I mean, they played like, a heck of a game first and foremost. That was an awesome game. That was probably my favorite game of the whole season. But I also think that they kind of, the best things happened in that game for Auburn.
Yeah.
Where they had the pick sixes. Alabama.
They had the 102-yard interception return. That helped out.
They had Alabama miss a kick the final, couple of minutes, and then they had Alabama.
And then the penalty, the 12 men on the field.
The 12 men on the field. They had 13 penalties. It just kind of went their way.
I think Alabama overall would beat them more often than they would not, but that day they did, and that's what football's about. It's a one-game shot.
Auburn's right there too, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. Their defense has been so good this year, and then their offense played really well against Alabama. That's our top 10, the final regular season one, anyways, before the title game. We got some great games coming up this weekend, of course. That's going to really, it's going to sort it out pretty much, but. You guys keep watching, subscribe, like, share. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll be talking to you later.
Thanks, guys.